So you've clicked on this video, and a small vocal minority of you are probably going to be typing up right now, you know, I bet this guy hates DPS or dislikes it sometimes because he sucks at DPS. And that's pretty much the end of the argument. That's what a lot of people say. I hear it all over the, everywhere, whenever somebody says something like this. And today I want to tell you guys, no, that's not really why I sometimes don't like playing the role. And I guess to back up myself a little bit, I don't really feel like I suck way too much at this role. And my example is, last season, I went from a 2,500 Platinum Smurf player to a 3,500, Reaper only player in about 8 or 9 hours. So 2 or 3 days. I feel like that's just so that I just don't suck at the role. That's not the reason why I might have times when I don't want to play it. It's not that I suck at it, it's just that there's some other problems about it, at least for me, in my own opinion. And before we get started, I do want to tell you guys, this is my own personal opinion. This is what I've experienced in my own games, what people have said to me, and it may not reflect what's happened to you, but I just like to share what's happened to me and kind of get the conversation going. So if you have your own opinion, and if you've had different, experiences, please do tell me. I'm not trying to state this as fact. I'm just trying to kind of get a conversation started and talk about why I sometimes don't like playing DPS, or I guess hate playing DPS, depending on the situation. Now, the number one main thing for me that I feel like really makes me dislike playing DPS at times is the fact that, at least in my own games, a lot of the times DPS are kind of like the jungler in League of Legends. They're the player that everybody just kind of points to, blames at, and whenever you lose a game or whenever you lose a team fight or anything like that, unless there was someone on your team with a glaring issue or a glaring team missing ult, like a Reinhardt ult or anything like that, or a glaring Mercy death before she could ult, if there's none of that, you're usually the one that's going to be getting the blame. You're usually the one that's going to maybe not have everyone completely rage at you, but definitely say, maybe if we had a better DPS, we could have won that team fight. If the DPS would have done more damage, gotten more picks, done everything quicker, we could have won that. And it's just something that just kind of shows up. I feel like the problem with this, and the problem with DPS and playing it, at least in my own experience, maybe it's just because I play a lot of Reaper and a lot of Soldier, I don't really know, is that when playing DPS, a lot of people expect a lot more than what the average can do. I feel like when you see a tank player, or when you see a support player, you just kind of expect them to be an average tank or average support, because, they have to fill that role, or, they're just playing that role because they just want to, whatever. But when you see that DPS player, they're a person that's put in hours onto that DPS, they've got to be 100% pro at that, top 1% for every single player, make plays of the game every single game. And I feel like this might come from, all those Overwatch best moments, Overwatch funniest moments, or just everybody only sharing their best games of Overwatch. When you even watch pros play on, their accounts in like the top 500, a lot of the times they don't have games that go out way too great. Of course, they work okay. These are great players, but not every single game is a complete DPS carry. But we don't really show that on YouTube. On YouTube, you get a much different piece of the, the spectrum, where DPS are the gods among other characters. They're the role that you gotta pick, you gotta carry as, and you gotta do everything as. And I feel like this just kind of becomes a problem, because when you're someone that just likes to play all the different roles and likes to play different roles for fun, it can be kind of daunting when playing DPS, and that's what I often feel. And I often feel when I'm playing this role, even if I'm doing well, and even if I'm carrying pretty well, I feel like I'm never doing well enough. And I feel like no matter how good I do or how many cool team wipes I get, I even won a 5v6 once, I feel like a lot of people just don't really think that you're just doing enough. You could always do more. You could always get better plays. You could always go somewhere from there. And I guess that can be a good thing because it pushes you to get better, but often it's very stressful and it makes you kind of just want to switch, and a lot of people want to take that role from you, so they will allow for you to switch onto them, and then you won't be playing DPS anymore. I don't know. One big other problem about DPS I'm going to say is that the United States, or I guess just NA, and most regions in general, put so much focus on DPS as a playmaker, as a pick maker, as all this stuff, and they don't really show how important the rest of the team is as enablers. They don't really show that without a nice tank blocking the DPS, well, he's just gonna die. He can't do anything. He's gonna be blocked out from the enemy. Let's say Diva, Winston, they're gonna dive on him, he's gonna die. There's not really any outplay potential he can do. He needs good tank play, he needs good support play, and we often just kind of shove that to the side and don't realize that without like a Reinhardt shield, it's really hard for McCree to really be enabled. It's hard for McCree to get those picks, to get that damage, to do anything, because he's so squishy. He gets countered by so many other DPS, even some tanks, not tanks, even some supports do a decent amount of damage to him without a shield. And overall, you just kind of need enablers for a lot of these characters. And, you know, we just don't really focus on those guys a lot of the time. A lot of the times when I'm playing DPS, because, you know, I switch between DPS, support, and tank all the time, I see maybe some mistakes that my tanks are doing, or some mistakes that my, you know, supports are doing, or maybe we had to push up a little bit more, or anything like that. But often I feel like instead of, you know, even if I tell them to move up, it's just somehow my fault because I didn't get the pick. I didn't get the damage out. And maybe sometimes it is. I'm not going to, you know, try to throw the blame on everyone else. Of course, sometimes it is. But a lot of the times I feel like we just kind of expect the DPS to pull out these miracles and be huge miracle workers. Probably just because, you know, we focus on that so much in NA in really every game. But a lot of times you need the rest of your team to play well, and you need the rest of your team to do at least, you know, decent to go on from there. And while I guess you could just, you know, blame DPS for not winning your games, I feel like a good example of how DPS always isn't so important, and especially in the meta that we're in right now, is the Korean team. In the Korean team, their DPS is not the star player for the most part. Still, very good player, amazing player. You know, all the DPS do really well, but it's not really the star player. A lot more we see people like Myro and, you know, all these other players playing tanks, pushing up, enabling their team really well, getting picks of those tanks, and, you know, just kind of going in from there and really allowing the DPS a lot of space to get out their damage. And as well, we see a lot of supports playing Ana, of course, like Rujong, or of course, you know, people playing Lucio and getting a lot more damage, maybe even twice or 3 times as much as other regions. Just a lot of focus on these support players, a lot of focus on these tank players, and how well they can do. And I feel like what this does is that it allows the DPS to have slightly less pressure on them, so they're probably going to play better, and as well shows that tank and support are really important in this game. I feel like they're, in some cases, way more important than the DPS role, because often the tanks and the supports control the meta. Who's ever the tank that's, you know, the good one right now, and whoever's the good support controls the meta. For example, you know, Winston and Diva, and then Lucio. There we go, we had dive meta. And in the past, of course, we had the triple tank meta when Ana was super good. You know, Ana, Diva, I think, what was it, Winston or Roadhog, Zarya, and Reinhardt, you know, a mixture of those guys. And, you know, since those supports and tanks were so good, there we go, they controlled the meta. And how it kind of goes other than that is that, you know, the DPS is chosen just based off what the main tank support meta is. And I feel it's probably this way because there's so little tanks and supports to really play, but I guess that's a whole nother topic. Overall, I'm just going to say that I feel like we shouldn't focus quite as much on DPS, and mainly the focus, while it does push you to become better, it makes a lot of players just kind of freak out when playing it. I guess that kind of happens to me sometimes, you know? I just want to play it, but I feel like if I don't really show off how great I am, then I can't really play that role. I guess as well, you know, on a completely different note, DPS is that role that is super hard to get. It's a super hard role to pick, and of course, a lot of the times, other people are just going to select it earlier than you, or you're going to get 3 or 4 people in selecting DPS. And what that did, when I was trying to play on my main account with Reaper finally, or sometimes on my Smurf, is that it can really just kind of turn you off from playing the role as a whole. And mainly, even worse than that, it turned me off from playing Overwatch as a whole. When I had to get into every single game and I wanted to play DPS, but I couldn't. And I got into another game, I wanted to play it, and I couldn't. And I got into another game and I wanted to play it, but I couldn't because I actually like good team comps. It was really frustrating. It just made me not want to play the game because I wasn't really allowed to play who I wanted to play when I wanted to play them. I was forced to play support or play tank, and it was kind of a pain because, you know, I wanted to play the DPS role, and that's what kind of makes me hate it at times. Just, I guess, how popular it is, and just, there's way more heroes of them than any of the other roles, so that's probably why, but it does kind of become a problem at times. Now, I guess a way to fix this that I've found is simply, instead of playing DPS, to play other roles. I've been enjoying mainly support right now a ton. I feel like Zenyatta and Lucio are a huge amount of fun. Both do a lot of damage, both do a decent amount of healing, both have a lot of initiation, can get picks, and can just go in from there. And I feel like they're overall quite enjoyable characters. And I've been switching from DPS to them as they're, you know, kind of like hybrid DPS, kind of, support DPS hybrids. And I've been able to play the game, been able to get into every single match, and almost every match, been able to play support. Of course, sometimes I still do have to fill as tank because support is still a lot more popular than tank, but I can play the role I want to play a little bit more. And I don't know, maybe that's why I don't like playing the DPS role, because getting into so many games and being let down by the fact that you're essentially never going to get the role that you want to play, it can ruin your morale very quickly, and it can just make you think, you know, why am I even playing this right now? If I'm not going to be able to play what I want to play, then why even queue up at all? And maybe that's just my own problem. Maybe that's just because I really focus on getting good team comps. I will not accept more than 3 DPS. Well, the 4th DPS, If I'm it, I'll switch, which I guess, you know, again, might just be my problem. But I feel like it's a lot funner to have good team comps and good games than, you know, just being really, really stubborn with your DPS. But again, maybe that's just what I'm thinking. Anyways, what do you guys think about DPS? Do you really like it? Do you hate it at times? Or where are you anywhere in between there? Of course, these are just my own opinions. Again, I want to really reinstate that. I'm not trying to shove anything upon you. This is just what I've experienced, and I would, again, like to hear what you guys have experienced, either trying to play it, playing it, or maybe just switching off of it after realizing that it's so dang hard to get onto. And I'm going to say one-trick ponies, which have been very popularized by me and a lot of other people in Season 4 and 5, because that is the best way to rank up. I will hold by that, but I hate that that's the truth. They've really forced people to play DPS for the most part, as they rank up the fastest, so maybe that's an addition to this problem. But what are your guys' own opinions about this? And I'd really like to hear that. Leave a comment down below if you want to talk about anything, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see any more content like this in the future. You got to say that, otherwise you cannot become the YouTube famous man. Just kidding. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.